An electric distribution company, now a vertically integrated, one that has generation, transmission, and distribution, can fit into this category. But why it's a separate category is for the ones that don't. Then they've got to buy their transmission and generation from somebody else. Sometimes those are called, when they're by themselves, transmission dependent utilities. And this drives why the FERC did what it did in authorizing IOUs. Say Arkansas, let's pretend it only had one utility that was a monopoly utility that covered the entire state, and the city of Little Rock wanted to be a municipality. Well, how would the city of Little Rock buy electricity from somewhere else? And how would they get it transmitted to Little Rock when Entergy owns all the generators that are close by and Entergy owns the transmission network? So you can see an electrical distribution company that isn't in the transmission business, they're the ones that can get hit by the market power of the utility. And the RTO, the purpose of an RTO is really to break that up and to give those entities more alternatives.
Right.
Now, a load balancing authority and load serving entity, the electricity is so complicated because supply and demand under the laws of physics have to match all the time or the system goes haywire. That is not the case. You have a lot of these network economics issues when you're doing a water system, right? But you have a water tower. And when supply and demand are different, it doesn't show up at your house. It just changes the level of the water tower, and the water tower gives you a cushion so that supply and demand don't have to match all the time. But with electricity, it has to match all the time. And the load balancing authority is an entity that manages that when something goes wrong where they can't balance, they have the kill switch.
Well, wait a minute. So Ted, in your example just there of the water system having a reserve in a standing water tower above the ground, they can service people. They're basically, it's a water battery for the water service is what you were describing. Okay, got it.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make that clear that you weren't talking about energy storage being a water tower, although that may eventually become a solution. But you were saying in an equivalent example of a shared network where people want high quality service, etc. Towns, you'll see them, you come into town and there's a big water tower and they're using that as basically a standing reserve where they can balance the needs of the system in real time within their own network.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So there's something other than it does. The first place you see it is at the house. Now, when the water tower gets empty, it shows up at the house.
Yeah.
But there's that cushion, and the cushion is the key. The cushion is much smaller. Now, you could do that with batteries, but if you take that large water tower and do a calculation, how long, if we put no more water in it, will people still have water? That time is a lot longer than if you had one huge battery and you had nothing else. That time would be measured in hours, if not minutes, where it's probably days for those large water towers that you see.
Yeah, in an electrical system equivalent example, you're suggesting that if you have let's say a rightly sized battery system, the distribution network could use that battery system as the water tower equivalent for the electricity system in that network. But today's technology, that the capacity of that battery for electricity is not as robust in terms of the time duration of service. It's smaller than the equivalent of the water tower.
It's a scale problem.
Got it.
You could do it with enough batteries, but then it comes cost prohibitive.
Yes, got it.
The cost of the storage is just cheaper when you're dealing with water than it is when you're dealing with electricity.
I just wanted to get that. It's a great comparison, and I wanted to really tease that out a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. So the load balancing authority is basically the person who orders units to go up and down to balance supply and demand in real time.
And is that here in California, is Cal ISO doing that, or is another entity doing that?
Cal ISO about probably 2/3 of the load with about half the geography of California is in Cal ISO. And I
Mhm.
don't know the specifics, but generally the RTO takes over as the balancing authority.
Okay, so the RTO actually acts as the balancing authority within the
Yes.
system. Okay, got it.
Now, when you don't have an RTO, there are probably 200 balancing authorities in the West, and it's
Mhm.
usually they're just the utility jurisdiction. Now,
Right.
some smaller entities like munis and co-ops will do their own balancing authority, and then some will sign an agreement and join the IOU, even though they're separate from the IOU, and just have balancing authority only.
So
And
the
then
RTO, if they're a balancing authority, they're actually contracting service from a variety of counterparties, or they're buying on the spot market to cover shortfalls.
yes,
Okay.
well, it's within the market rule. The spot market is going to be within the RTO rule construct.
Okay. Okay.
But the footprint that you're balancing in is what drives the value of the RTO. Because what you're trying to do is each time power goes up by any unit, let's just say 1 unit, what you want to do is look over your entire balancing authority and find the cheapest generation that is not already running and serve that load with that. And then the opposite is true too. When your load goes down 1 unit, you want the balancing authority to find the cheapest one. And if you have a larger geographic area, there's going to be alternatives that are better, just mathematically, that at some point in the time when you have a larger area, there's going to be a cheaper resource than in the smaller area, whether you're ramping up load or ramping it down.
Wait. So I think you might have misspoken there, and I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. As you're ramping up, you're trying to find the cheapest resource to
Yes,
solve the next
yes,
load problem. But as you're ramping down, aren't you trying to get rid of the
yes,
most expensive
yes, that's correct.
resources?
That's correct.
Okay, you said
Yes,
that in
that's
opposite, so
absolutely
I want
right.
to just make sure
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's clear. As the
yeah,
grid is demanding more energy, the RTO, or the load balancing authority, is trying to find the lowest cost resource to solve the demand problem. And
yes,
as you're coming down where demand is falling, they're trying to shed the most expensive resource
yes,
and leave on the least expensive resource to the last minute.
yes.